Welcome to the Draft Board Hockey Show. My name is Mark, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Link, and we have a special guest, Adam Kimelman from NHL.com. We're going to talk a little bit of 2026 NHL draft class. Welcome to the show, Adam. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate you taking some time for us. Adam, this draft class, are we concerned at all about Gavin McKenna right now and that first overall spot? Is it too early to worry about that kind of stuff? He's not putting up, those crazy numbers that we're expecting. What are your thoughts on him?
Not even a little bit. There would have to be something massive / drastic for Gavin McKenna not to be the number one player picked in the 26 NHL draft. We had Dan Marr, the director of NHL Central Scouting, on our podcast, the NHL Draft Class podcast, and he said very similar. Gavin McKenna, just the elite offensive skill set is still puts him head and shoulders above the rest of the guys in this year's draft class. You have to understand that, the 130 or 125 points, whatever he had last year in the Western Hockey League, playing against guys 2 years older than him. Now he's playing against guys 4 years older than him. He's still he's not even 18 yet. So there's like a real age discrepancy there, and he's just sort of getting up to the pace. And he still has 10 points in 8 games. And if you look, none of all that mass exodus of CHL players that went to the NCAA, I think there was a mindset of, well, we dominated Canadian Hockey League. We'll just roll into the NCAA and just steamroll. And it hasn't happened for any of those guys yet. Porter Martone or Caden Lindstrom or Roger McQueen, Cole Rashny, Keaton Verhoff, they've had nice starts to the season, but none of them have kind of just blown anybody out of the water because they're not playing against 17 and 16-year-olds anymore. They're not playing against kids their own age. They're all being tested in ways they've never been tested before, from a size, a strength, a physicality standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint. There's so many things that they have to adjust to in the college lifestyle that takes time. It takes an adjustment period. So to bring it back to McKenna, of all those guys who have stepped in from the CHL, McKenna has more points than any of them. So he's also the best player on the poll came out this morning, the number 4 team in college hockey. So I've had the chance to see him live in person once, watched him on TV a couple of times. He is their best player. They know he's their best player. He might not have the stats to back that up. Some of the older guys have had bigger games, but he's their best player. He's their most talented offensive player. And among the players in this year's draft class, I don't know if there's anybody close to him.
Gotcha. I mean, look, first of all, I will say the Gavin McKenna discourse has been absolutely it's been wild. It's been incredible that people have been even writing off only 6 games in. But we saw against Stonehill, he's been fantastic. One thing I would like to add really quickly for why he's not putting up the incredible points that some of his other teammates are. Last season, Charlie Serrato, JJ Webush, and Nick DiMarisco, that was the wonderkid line for Penn State last year. That's the line that took them all the way to the Frozen Four last year. Coach Guy Godowski is not going to split them up. He said as much when I was down there after the Clarkson series. And it's pretty much now it's Gavin McKenna, Aiden Fink, and a collection of 5 centers who have been centering them throughout the year. So through 10 games, he has been with a different center almost every single series. So he's had a bit of a tough adjustment to the NCAA. So I wouldn't be worried at all either. So I just wanted to add that in there as well. But outside of Gavin McKenna, who do you think is really in contention for second overall? Obviously, we started off the year with Keaton Verhoff, but there's also some names like Ivar Stenberg, Tynan Lawrence, maybe even Ethan Belchitz with how well he's been playing in the OHL. Who do you really think are the real contenders for second overall?
I really like Belchez. I think the size absolutely jumps right off the page. You looked at the start of the season that he's had where he's been a dominant player in Windsor. To me, he reminds me a lot of what Porter Martone did last year in the Ontario League, just the size, the skill, the skating, the toughness. He's got the Brady Tkachuk toughness gene to him in the same way that Porter did. The skating, obviously, he's going to have to get a little bit better because he is a big kid. It's going to take some time. But, man, I can't imagine that bumping him out of being, as high as number 2, somewhere in that top 5, 6, 7 range for sure. You mentioned Ivar Stenberg. I saw him a little bit in the summer at the World Junior Summer Showcase. You watch video of him now playing in Sweden, and you think you actually have to remind yourself that he's dominating and playing so well against men. He's playing in the highest possible league he can play in at 17/18 years old, whenever his birthday is. And just the things he's able to do with the puck on his stick, the way he's able to speed up, slow down, draw defenders to him and find, open teammates, the high-end hockey IQ, the elite offensive skill set. It's so impressive, especially when you put it against the level of competition he's playing against. And Tynan Lawrence, he's just kind of starting to knock the rust off a little bit after missing some time with the injury, but just pure playmaker, great speed, great shot, the vision, the passing ability, it's all top notch. And like I said, it's good that he's healthy and going again. He's going to be fun to watch with Muskegon in the USHL this season.
Absolutely. Actually, I had the privilege of watching Ethan Belchez last night against Saginaw, had 2 goals and an assist, and actually a really highlight reel goal early in the first period. So yeah, he's looking pretty good. And like you said, that size, you can't teach size like that, and definitely nice to see. Now, you mentioned Dan Marr from NHL Central Scouting. You had him on your show, NHL Draft Class. Go check that out on a podcast. And were there any surprises in terms of the A rating prospects? Were there any players that you thought, wow, I can't believe they made the A list so far?
No, not really. And just because it's so early in the season, you see this annually. There's guys who will, start high and dip as the season goes on, or they'll start a little bit lower and they'll kind of just climb and climb and climb as the season goes on. So it's really hard to say, surprising when we're still talking about, it's not even U.S. Thanksgiving yet. It's barely even Halloween yet. So, to say who's doing well and not doing well, I think these are kind of things I like, for me at least, got to give them some time, because there's guys who were like a Tynan Lawrence, for example, who's still coming back from injury. He's still kind of working off whatever issues he had to work through. There's guys like, Gavin McKenna, who's still adjusting to the pace of play at a new level. So I think there's you grade some of these guys on a curve. And to me, it's what happens coming into and leaving World Juniors, that time frame. That to me is where you really can get a good determination on who a player is, what he's going to be, and sort of where his future could lead him.
Yeah, let's move it back to the defensemen of this class, because I feel like that's where the real strength lies, in the top 10, top 15. Let's assume that Keaton Verhoff is the number 1 defenseman far on into June of this year. Who are the defensemen that are surrounding him on that pedestal, and who do you think can climb into that top 10 range as a defenseman that isn't there already?
Well, I think for sure Xavier Villeneuve is just such a dynamic offensive player. You watch him skate, you watch him move with the puck, without the puck. He's just such a dynamic offensive player, and he's able to use it defensively. More of that is going to come as he gets a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. He's a guy for sure that I think is going to get top 10 consideration. Chase Reed is another one. Really like the way he skates, the way he moves the puck. He's like a breakout machine. Every time, his team's leaving the zone, he's either doing it with his feet or he's, making all the right reads, finding his options, getting the puck into the right hands to get up the ice to create scoring chances. And if you watch, or at least when I've watched him, you wait for to see what he's able to do defensively. And then I realized, well, nobody's coming down his side. They're going to the other side on their entries. So to just keep the puck away from him as best as they can, because they know that if he gets on his stick or he gets near it, it's going the other way. He's that good as far as transitioning the play, reading the play, getting the puck moving the other way. And the other guy I really enjoyed watching is Malte Gustafsson, the Swedish defenseman with HV71. Just, not flashy, but just so effective at both ends of the ice, smart, skilled, big. And then once he learns to start using that use that size to his advantage, be a little bit more physical, I think he's got a chance to be a really nice, effective player. He's a guy that, the little bits of film I've been able to watch on him, really liked him and really liked the potential there. Staying
with the defensemen in the draft class, your thoughts on the WHL? There's 3 really nice D coming out of the dub this year. What are your take on those 3, and how close are they in terms of ranking wise? Where do you pin them?
Well, Ryan Lynn obviously is going to be at the head of that class, and just again the skating, the way he moves with the puck, it's all top notch, top level. The head for the game. He's so good in transition. I like the way watching him defend is. You look at these guys, how good they are all offensively. It's sort of, I don't want to say it's a given, but they're all so gifted and skilled with the puck. What can they do the other way? And what I like with Lynn is just he's so smart with his positioning that he's able to defend and not have to try to run a guy through the boards, because he's never going to be the biggest guy out there, but he still managed to be effective at his size. Daxon Rudolph is another guy that I've enjoyed watching. Just again, really smooth, bigger, obviously, than some of the other guys in his group, but also so good positionally. Like the shot, he's able to show, he's shown he's been able to get it on net, with a pretty good regularity from the blue line. I like how he's really gifted at cutting off plays at center ice or the blue line, starting the quick transition. I've liked that from him. And Carson Carrolls from Prince George, just, another guy who, like the way he moves the puck, nice shot, it's accurate. 5-on-5 and on the power play, he's able to make that play, get that puck on net. Fluid skater, like the way he's elusive when he's moving with it. Pull away speed when he gets into open ice. Again, another guy a little bit bigger at 6'1" and 200 pounds. So, you want to see more of the defensive ability and sort of using that size and strength a little bit more to his advantage. And again, that's going to come as he gets older, as he gets more mature, as he gets, better coached. But you can see the foundation is there, again, to be another really, really gifted player when he gets, to where he's going to get to in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Going forward now, we want to highlight some people that have kind of disappointed to this point. We've really just highlighted the highs of this class. Ryan Rubrek was someone who we came into this year, both me and Mark, expecting to pop off, be the best goal scorer in this draft class. And so far, he's come out a bit slow, a little bit lackluster in terms of effort. And then just a lot of lacking of inconsistency. What are your thoughts on his case? And are there other potential fallers in this draft class that you can identify as being really significant?
Well, again, I think it's too early to start, burying guys or overpraising guys. Because, again, kind of goes back to what I said earlier. It's just too early in the season. Some guys, they're being challenged in ways they're not used to being challenged. And you got to understand, these guys are 17, 18 years old. They have the spotlight completely on them. And it can be blinding. And it can be sometimes debilitating, where these guys put so much pressure on themselves. They end up working against themselves because they want to do so much, be so impressive, and score 3 goals every shift. And that just doesn't happen. So that could be a little bit of what's going on with Ryan Rubrek. It's going to come for him. There's too much talent. There's too much skill. You look at the size, the goal scoring ability, the way he's got beastly strength. He's so hard to handle down low in the offensive zone. Whatever his struggles are now, I don't envision them lasting throughout the season. I think it's just a question of he might just be in his own head. It happens. I've seen it happen. This is my 18th year covering the draft. I have seen it happen where you forget these kids are just 18 years old, and we expect them to be so much more, but we forget that they're still teenagers, and sometimes they don't have the capacity to take whatever's being said about them and put it in the back of their mind and just go out and play hockey because they want to impress. They know who's watching them in the stands. They can see general managers. They can see scouts. They know, World Juniors is a thing. The CHL prospects game is coming up. They want to be part of that. They want to be so impressive, and they end up working against themselves. So I think that could be a situation with a guy who maybe we thought would be, quote unquote, better than where he is now. I think you got to give these guys a little bit of grace when it comes to where they are at this early stage in the season.
Now, on the flip side, there's been a few hot starts so far for some of these prospects, such as JP Hurlburt and Yegor Shilov and Nikita Klepov. If they maintain that pace throughout the season, are these players that can, jump up in the draft rankings, potentially top 10 picks in the near future?
For sure. I think with Hurlburt, I don't know if anyone expected him to make that jump from the national team program to leading the Western League in scoring, a month into the season with 28 points in 14 games. But there are a lot of things that he does that look to be sustainable. He's always around the puck. He's just a puck hound, high-end offensive skill set, but he plays that 200-foot game. It's really been impressive to watch so far, and he's a guy that, it's definitely the road less traveled, going all the way out to Kamloops and jumping into the Western League where it's 16-hour bus rides and not the most convenient rinks to play in or to get to. But he hasn't just gotten there. He's gotten there, and he has been a standout on his team. So, I think for sure you look at the skill set, and he's come that national team program, you're groomed for success there because of all the other things that they give you, all the other opportunities they give you from a training standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint, and from a habit standpoint. And he's been able to take all those things with him, I'm assuming, out to Kamloops, and he's just being tested in a very different way. And so far, he's passed all his early tests with flying colors, and I think there's enough talent there for it to be sustainable. And, he's certainly opened eyes, and he's going to be much more closely watched as we progress here through the season.
Absolutely. One of my favorites from the NTDP last year, him and Lincoln Keene. Obviously, we have the same first name. No bias there. Just kidding. Oh, man. One of the last questions here. Besides Tyne and Lawrence, what other centers do you have marked down on your draft board as guys who are going to stay at center, transition at centers that we should look at and be, okay, these guys are going to be middle six to top six centers potentially if they pan out?
Well, there's kind of two guys that jump to mind, both playing in the Ontario League, Brooks Rogowski and Oshawa. I haven't seen a lot of video of him, just little snippets, but man, 6'7" and 232 pounds is super intriguing. NHL teams love centers. They especially love centers with size, and that Michigan State, again, that's an outstanding place for him to go. The staff there is, Adam Nightingale, again, came out of the national team program. He's done a phenomenal job at Michigan State. He certainly knows how to coach bigger players. You look at Porter Martone, you look at Caden Lindstrom, both playing well there. Brooks Rogowski, he's bigger than them, but he fits that mold. 13 points in 15 games with Oshawa already. He's going to be a fun one to watch. And Caleb Malhotra, the son of AHL Abbotsford's coach, Manny Malhotra, the longtime NHL player. We had Dan Marr on our podcast, and Caleb was a player that he absolutely had to point out because, he got really good ice time early in the season with Brantford when, Jake O'Brien and Marek Vanacker, Adam Banak, all their their NHL prospects were still at training camp, and he excelled, and now they've come back, but he's done well enough that he's earned that ice time that he was getting. He's still getting it even with those NHL caliber guys back on the team. He's still in the top power play with O'Brien and Vanacker. 18 points in 13 games certainly stands out on the back of the hockey card, but the first three-step quickness, that burst in his skating absolutely stands out. Stood out to me when I watched him, but he's not just an offensive guy. He's a hard worker. Knowing the way his father played, it's not surprising. He's not afraid of the physical play. And the fact that he's managed to stand out against guys who are going to be in the NHL within the next 12 to 18 months, let's say, he's already looked right at home with those guys. So he's going to be a guy that as we move forward in the season, scouts are going to want, multiple visits on him to really dig into who he is, what he is, and what his projection is going to be.
I mean, there are two names I didn't hear that I'm kind of burning to know your thoughts on, because I am not going to see one of them, but I will get to see the other in person. Two names have really, surprisingly so, taken control of the outside of Gavin McKenna, have taken control of college hockey. And besides Berhoff and McKenna, these two names have kind of taken control of college hockey, and that's Adam Valentini and Ilya Morozov, both of whom are point per game or better with their respective programs. I certainly didn't see this coming. I want to know where they lie for you.
You look at the numbers and where they stand, and the fact that, again, you're talking about younger guys jumping up to NCAA hockey. And I think a lot of that goes back to the fact that people are sort of, I hate to say just discovering NCAA hockey, but it's in the spotlight more so now than it really ever has been. And people realize, it's not a second option for guys. It's not, it used to be, well, you can't make it in the CHL, I'll go NCAA. It's another path. Well, now it's equal footing to the CHL, and it's very different both routes have advantages. But you need to, the players, for some players, it's better for them to go to the NCAA level. Gavin McKenna, we'll use him as an example. He wanted to be tested against bigger, stronger, older competition. And it's helped him. Other guys, a Belchez or a Rubrek or a Ryan Lynn, those guys are good playing at the level they're at because they're getting a ton of games and a ton of ice time, and they're playing every 2-3 days, which is equivalent to an NHL schedule. And they're going to play 72 games, maybe up to 90 if their teams all go all the way to the Memorial Cup. Again, very similar to an NHL season. So there's pros and cons to both routes. But to me, if you're an 18-year-old and you're making that jump to the NCAAs where you're playing against 20, 21-year-olds and you're standing out, that's a big mark in your column, regardless of what the offensive production numbers look like. The fact that you're there and you don't look out of place says a lot to me about what your potential is moving forward.
Awesome stuff. Adam, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Love talking draft prospects, and go check Adam out at NHL.com and also the NHL Draft Class Pod. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope to have you on in the near future, especially when it gets closer to draft time.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime.
Cheers.